Welcome to video 5.6, value of a ratio.
Today we're going to talk about how to find the value of a ratio and how to list the different scenarios from a ratio. And we're going to write one part of a ratio as a multiplicative comparison of the other using the value of the ratio. Don't let this one throw you off or fool you or get you all worked up. Literally what we're doing is we're taking the value and we're taking the two pieces of the ratio and we're writing a multiplication statement. All right, so here we go. Which of the following correctly models that the number of red gumballs is 5/3 the number of white gumballs? Well, if you take a look at each of the comparisons, so we didn't draw gumballs, we drew boxes to represent them. In the first one, we have 3 red to 5 white. Well, since 5 is listed first, or listed on top, that means that it goes first. So we know that 5 in this case, so this 5, there we go, has to go with red. And then we know that the 3, because it's listed second, the 3 has to go with the white. So in this case, what you're looking for is something that has 5 red and 3 white, which we know would be this option right here, so B. Okay, that's literally what the value of the ratio tells us. The value of the ratio is written just like the ratio is shown. So let's take a look at example number 2. Let's really extend that. So here we have the duration of 2 films. So film A is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And film B is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so if you look at it, it says the ratio of the length of film A to the length of film B is, so we know that A is 5 and B is 7. Okay, so the ratio is 5 to 7. So now if I want to write it as a multiplicative comparison of A to B, then I write my ratio in that form. So I take this and I say, okay, 5 to 7, I can write it as a fraction that looks like this. Since we're saying the length of A compared to B, so the length of A is 5/7 the length of film B. Okay, now if I flip that and look at B compared to A, well, since I'm looking at B first, I have to flip my ratio and say, okay, well then film B is 7/5 the length of film A. All right, so that's what we're working on today. So we're taking each of the ratios that we're given, we're going to find the value, and then we are going to use that value to write a multiplicative comparison. Okay, so when you're trying to find the value, so here are your you-try problems. We're not going to do them, but I am going to give you a few quick examples because this is actually pretty simple. So for us, when you're trying to find the value, so let's say we have 14 to 8. Okay, I know both of these can be divided by 2. So this is 7 to 4. So the value of this ratio is 7/4. Right? Let's say that we're given the ratio, let me add one more page here. Let's say we're given a ratio that's written in with a colon. So I have 15 to 9. What I want to do is I want to set it up as, or in fraction form, and then I want to simplify it. Both can be divided by 3, and I get 5 to 3. So then the value we say as a fraction. So as a ratio, that's 5 to 3. Value is read as a fraction. So this one is 5/3. Right, So literally what you're doing is you're simplifying the ratio as far as it can go, and then you're writing it in fraction form. So again, here are your you-try problems, these three right here. You need to write the value of each ratio. And you don't need to do that right now, but at the end. And then now we're going to move on to using it in a real-world problem. So here we go. So we have a food company that produces peanut butter, and they decide to try out a new version of its peanut butter. The extra crunchy, using twice the number of peanut chunks as normal. And the company hosts a sampling of its new product at a grocery store and finds that 5 out of every 9 customers prefer new extra crunchy version. Right, so I'm actually going to change this font here so you can read it a little bit more easily. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the important information. Okay, so I have a food company that produces peanut butter, and they try out a new version of its peanut butter that is extra crunchy, using twice the number of peanut chunks as normal. That actually doesn't mean anything to us. Okay, the reason that it doesn't mean anything to us is because of the fact that we know that at the end, they're talking about 5 out of every 9. So in this case, this food company part, that's just setting up the problem for us. And the fact that it's twice as much doesn't matter to us because we're not talking about the old recipe compared to the new recipe. What we're looking at is the fact that the grocery store finds that 5 out of every 9 customers prefer new extra crunchy. Okay, so that means that if we were to write a ratio, my first ratio could be extra crunchy to total. And in that case, the ratio is 5 to 9. Okay, but then there's also other ways that it can be set up. So if we look at the difference between the two, so I know if I take 9 minus 5, that gives me 4. So that tells me that 4 people had to like the regular crunchy. So I can say regular crunchy to total will be 4 to 9. Okay, and there's still more ways to write this. So now I could actually take my 2, my extra, and my regular crunchy, and I could say extra crunchy to regular crunchy, and that would be 4 to 5. Or I could flip it and say extra crunchy to regular crunchy would be 5 to 4. So now I've got 4 different ways to write my ratio. And then now here I can also say total to extra crunchy, and that's 9 to 5. Or I could do total to regular crunchy, which is 9 to 4. So even though I was only given 2 pieces of information, I was able to create 6 different ratios from that information just by figuring out the amount of regular crunchy, knowing the total, okay, and then putting them in reverse orders. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the second question, which is using the value of each ratio to make the multiplicative comparison for the other ones described. So what that means is if I were to take my first ratio and say, okay, I want to compare, so the number of people that like extra crunchy, and we're just going to put PB for peanut butter, is, and then there's going to be some number that goes here, that's the multiplicative part, or the value to make it a multiplicative part, is blank times, that's the multiplication part. And actually we don't always have to put times because remember here we didn't put times, we just put the value and then the. So let's say is the value, so the number of people that like Extra Crunchy PB is blank, the number of total people. Okay, so we're just going to set up our sentences first. Okay, then the next one, the number of people that like regular crunchy PB is blank the number of total people. Okay, so you're setting your ratio up in the same order as you're setting up your statements. We could also say the number of people that like Extra Crunchy PB is blank the number of people who like regular crunchy PB. Okay, and what I'd like you to do at this point is I would like you to try to write your last 3 sentences on your own. And then when you come back, we're going to take a look and check your answers. Okay, so while we're doing this, I know I've got a bunch of stuff going on here. I'm trying to give myself some more space so you guys can see this a little bit more easily. Okay, so then our last pieces should be number of people that like, and actually I'm just going to use this and make it easier. So the number, so the total number of people surveyed is blank the number of people that like Extra Crunchy. Okay, and then the next one is going to be exactly the same, except for now we're comparing it to regular crunchy. And then the very last one will be almost exactly the same as the last part, except for now it's going to be regular. So the number of people that like regular crunchy peanut butter is blank the number of people who like extra crunchy peanut butter. All right. So then now we go through and honestly we just fill in our values. So here the number of people that like extra crunchy peanut butter is, well, here's our ratio, and the value that can't be simplified, so is 5/9 the number of total people. So if I took whatever the number of people is that like crunchy and multiply it by 5/9, that would give me the total. That's what this statement is saying. So here the number of people that like regular crunchy peanut butter is 4/9 the number of total people. Okay, and then here the number of people that like extra crunchy peanut butter, not PG, sorry, is, and then here is the ratio for that one. That one was 4/5, so that one can't be simplified, so that's 4/5. So it's 4/5 the number of people who like extra crunchy. And the total number of people surveyed is, and we're comparing that to extra crunchy, so that's 9/5 the people that like crunchy. So again, if I take the number of people surveyed, multiply it by 9/5, it will equal how many people like the extra crunchy. And then here it would be 9/4. So again, if I take the people surveyed times 9/4, it'll equal the number of people that like regular crunchy. And then the number of people that like regular crunchy peanut butter is, and actually I did this one backwards before. This one should be 5/4, and this one should be 4/5. Okay, so really we're taking it easy at this point in setting up our sentences and setting up our problems. You need to be able to write your sentences and to be able to find the value of the ratio and write them as sentences, because what we're going to do next is turn them into equations. So again, this is a pretty simple lesson. It's just a matter of finding all of your pieces and putting them where they belong. Okay, so really take your time with this. So then the last part is your you try problems. And in our You Try Problems, we actually talk about Ben and his dating and going to prom, so enjoy that. And as always, if you have any questions, please be sure to write them down or email me so we can go over them in class.